Cup.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Cricket Podcast, where we're going to be talking about the final round of games from the group stage of the T20 World Cup before we go on to preview the two semi-finals. I think it's fair to say it's not what we expected to happen over the last 12, 24 hours. I am Jack Hope. I'm joined by two very distinguished cricket pundits. Well, one very distinguished cricket pundit and some chancer called Dan Weston. Which one of you would like to introduce yourself first? Dan, how are you doing?
I am well, having swiftly evaded the tiger tattoo that I was bet by Ross. Yeah, Bangladesh had their second opportunity to give me a shock inking and still failed miserably.
Yep. And Ross Legg, are you disappointed that Dan will not be tatting up with a baby tiger cub or whatever you were going to put on him?
Yeah. Pretty devastating. But as I should have listened to Shakib Al Hassan, right? They weren't there to win the World Cup, so why even try to bother to win?
It's a good question. Right, we're going to start with a question because you were talking about this off air, and I want to know the answer. We put out a call for questions from people on the Twitter, and somebody got in touch with us, and they asked for what was it, the weirdest stat or the best stat of the T20 World Cup. So I'm going to ask for your best stat of the T20 World Cup, Dan, to begin the show.
It's from Random Cricket Stats, by the way. So we're doing his research for him.
Well, Rohit Sankar, and then Original Cricket Stats, I think, copied it in terms of retweeting it afterwards. But I'm going to have to read this one out. It's amazing. KL Rahul has faced 61 balls in the first over of T20s in 2022. 42 dots, 3 boundaries. In this T20 World Cup, 21 of the 26 balls he has faced in the first over have been dots.
Wow,
that's good. I've got a random stat, and I'm lifting this from Jack Fox, who's occasionally on this show. If you took Surya Kumar Yadav from 2022 and turned every 4 he hit into a dot ball in international cricket, his strike rate would still be higher than Kane Williamson's.
That is a hell of a stat.
That's a great
Jack's
stat.
got too much time in his hands if he's worked that
out. Ross, what stat have you got for us?
No. The cricket bats just fallen over behind you, very, very smooth. You were there just to be like, oh, in my background, I do have a cricket bat because I'm very important when it comes to cricket. I haven't got any cricket stats at the moment, okay. I'm with the stat man and Mr. Data. So I'm a passenger.
Cool. I thought stats man Mac's not around.
Yeah, that was a good stat. I thoroughly enjoyed both of those. What are we going to cover first, Jack?
Right. Well, we've got a smorgasbord of options. We've got England. We haven't talked about England yesterday, and whatever that was. We've got South Africa, the disaster artists of international cricket. We've got Pakistan, who are for some reason still in this tournament. And we've got a little bit of India v Zimbabwe, and then the semi-final preview. I think we're going to do that last. Which of the first options would you choose your own adventure, basically?
It's got to be Dan. Dan's the guest.
Okay.
Dan should guide us.
Yeah, here we go. Dan?
I don't know. I mean, do we go with the chronological order, like India first, and then we go back to Pakistan, or do we do South Africa first because that kind of sets up the other ones? I don't know.
Well, I think people okay, Ross, go on.
Let's go South Africa because it's absolutely hilarious. It is absolutely hilarious.
Right, we're doing South Africa with the Netherlands. On the show that Max and I did on Friday, we were joking about Pakistan's 50-1 odds. We said that was I can't remember what we were joking, but we were trying to work out what their actual chances of going through. We said that Netherlands had something between a 5 and 10% chance of winning this match. We basically wrote them off, and they won. And they actually won by a 13-run margin. They batted first. They were able to put a couple of the South African seamers under a fair bit of pressure. Rabada and Ngidi didn't even bowl out. Both went over 10 and over. Max O'Dowd was the man who did the run scoring again. I think in the last 2 World Cups he scored about a third of their runs. So decent effort from Max O'Dowd. Tom Cooper.
He was striking under 100, mate. He was the anchor. It was all about Colin Ackerman. Ackers, as Dan Weston calls him.
Well, look, we're getting there. Tom Cooper and Ackerman provided a little bit of pop to get him up to 158. Now, we had said, like a few times in this our punditry of the Netherlands, that they're a bowling team, and if they could get some runs on the board, they could theoretically trouble one of the bigger sides. And this was probably the first time in the tournament where they done it. They'd actually got a score. South Africa came out. Quinton de Kock back with a little bit of intent, but didn't look that fluent. 13 off 13. Bavuma did a Bavuma, 20 off 20. And suddenly they were in quite a lot of trouble. This is when I got in from the pub. And I was like, there's no chance. I checked it on my phone when I got in. And I was like, oh shit, I'm going to have to actually watch this now. So I'd had about 14 Negronis. And I watched Netherlands sort of put the squeeze on and then throw the ball over to Brandon Glover with things in the balance. 2 wickets in an over, including an amazing catch from Roelof van der Merwe, which was really good. There was also, just on the amazing catch point, there was an amazing one-handed crowd catch too. So it was a good day for fielding in Adelaide, I think, wasn't it? That Brandon Glover over sort of changed the game. The over after that went for a couple of runs, and South Africa, limped out of the tournament in I want to say sort of humiliating style, because they've lost to the Netherlands, but actually the Netherlands have fundamentally outplayed them across the 40 overs. Dan, were you up? I don't know if you've been drinking any Negronis last night. Maybe you stumbled in from the pub and thought you'd tune in as well.
Certainly not. My life is more clean cut. My wife and stepdaughter are currently on holiday at the moment, and I'm at home with 3 dogs, so no alcohol consumption for me. It was not a possible one. However, so full disclosure, I think what was the time this game started? About midnight UK time.
It was midnight. Yeah.
I woke up about 3 o'clock in the morning, 3:30 in the morning. I was like, what? Check my phone. But first of all, a point of order. I think when I was on with Ross and Max the other day, a listener said, "Oh, you only said Ackers is the best batter for Netherlands because he's your mate." Well, I didn't hear anything from that tweeter today about 126. So 3 overs for not many. So let's hear it the other way as well. And secondly, I'll be interested to hear this. Another stat is that the Netherlands hit 20 boundaries and scored 15 fours and 5 sixes. South Africa only hit 12 boundaries in the whole game. The Netherlands hit more fours than South Africa hit more fours and sixes. And if you look at South Africa only hitting 12 boundaries in this match, it kind of leads me to believe that they was going very, very risk averse. There was the fear there as well. There wasn't 10% boundaries is not going to win you matches, but the fact that they got within 13 runs despite scoring 8 boundaries fewer suggests that they significantly outscored the Netherlands on non-boundary runs, and that seemed like a bit of a plan, maybe.
Ross.
Yeah, I think it's ultimately it has been the World Cup of chaos, right?
Yeah.
And when you're a big dog, South Africa in this context, big dog. You don't want chaos. You want to go to the World Cup of conservative cricket and reduce the risk of you falling out of the tournament. And let's be fair, a couple of teams have been very close to being knocked out because they've really underperformed against some of the lesser, in inverted in quotation marks there, nations like the Netherlands here. And it's the panic button. And we saw it with England versus Sri Lanka yesterday of not hitting kind of boundaries in the second part of the innings. It was a little bit fraught with a bit of danger. And ultimately, South Africa didn't have a Ben Stokes to guide them home, which was, let's be fair, it was a pretty tricky 158 to chase. I think on that pitch, with that bowling lineup, it was always going to be a little bit tricky. It's a brilliant result for Netherlands.
Ross, can I ask you a question? On a scale of 0 to Lance Klusener, how big of a choke was this?
I reckon it's an 8. I think.
You reckon it's an 8?
I reckon it's 8 because I think that they had 1 foot in the semi-finals, right? And they had the opportunity. They won the toss as well. The whole thing in this tournament has been probably bat first and kind of take away that risk of the game. And Bavuma was like, nah, we'll chase whatever they're going to put up. And I thought it was a really bad decision. And I think out of what they did here, Rabada's not really turned up for this tournament, really. The batsman, a bit under, I don't know, I'll say undercooked, but like, when you have Bavuma and de Kock going at a run a ball opening up, that is a disgrace. Like, you've got to use the power play against the Netherlands because you know the choke is going to try and cover it when they've got the spinners on. Like, that's rudimental, and it's just a bit of a disaster class from them.
Rudimental, isn't that a dance? A DJ, or is that? I kind of agree with a lot of that. I think there was a big choke here. Netherlands can bowl, but I think the whole performance from South Africa it's an aberration. You shouldn't be letting Netherlands, with the players they've got, get 158 if you've got that bowling lineup. And I think South Africa have been really guilty of just not adapting to the conditions sort of at all through the tournament. I think every other team, as an example here, have bowled way fewer slower balls in the tournament because you're getting loads of bounce, you're getting quite a lot of lateral movement, and if you look at the data, there's basically every other team's worked it out. And Ngidi's there, like everything's coming out the back of the hand. He's going at 12 and over. It's like, why are you doing that? It doesn't really make sense. I think some of their plans have been quite off. It doesn't help as well that their batting is by and large flopped. Riley Russo teed off in one game, didn't he? And de Kock got a score. Has anyone else done anything?
Killer
really.
Miller, unfortunately, carrying this team on his back in the middle orders. Like, Dan, what's your view on Klaassen? Is again one of those people I don't think I've ever seen him hit a run.
I mean, he's okay, but not an above average player at international level. Where was Stubbs today?
I don't know. On the beach.
No. Well, they won't have
enhancing his reputation on the bench, I imagine.
And they won't have to worry about it anymore because they've got the baby AB to come in pretty soon. He's the prodigy. Another musical reference there. And he'll be starting some fires, no doubt, in the top 6 in the not too distant future. But I do want to make a point here. I mean, we've been on a lot of pods together, and we've spoken a lot about these type of things, and we've spoken about specifically with regards to KL Rahul and Virat Kohli. I'm going to bring them into this discussion here, even though we're not talking about an India match. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And people say, they always accelerate, they blah 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 blah. And I'm always like, well, what happens if they get 20 off 20 or 25 off 25 and then they get out? Well, look at the South African card, and that's basically what happens.
Yeah. I've got a question, and then we'll probably move on, because I think we've covered the fact that it was a choke and that Netherlands played pretty well. Could if South Africa have got maybe 3 batters that would improve their team? Faf du Plessis. This is a question basically ripped from Sonny on Twitter. Faf du Plessis, Tristan Stubbs, and Baby AB, Devil Brevis. Why are none of them in the squad?
I can't answer that question. I don't know the answer to that question. It's not something that I'm privy to at all. Certainly, Stubbs being omitted for Klaassen is a bit weird. I think that it's fine to pick Rosso, Marker, and Miller based on what they've done in recent years, or in Rosso's case, more domestically than internationally, but he's been fine at sort of 3 to 5. But I think you talk about 3 players who will be able to do a better job. I think there's probably 30 players who'll be able to do a better job opening than Bavuma in South African domestic cricket right now. And I think that when you've got someone in a kind of a position of responsibility, but also someone who's chewing up a lot of balls on a consistent basis, that's a big problem for you.
We all know how kind of a minimal impact a captain has in a T20 side as well, right? So actually, they'll be sitting there going, "Oh, he's there for his leadership qualities, etc." Just in T20 cricket, not that important.
Right, we're going to move on in the World Cup of Chaos. to the game that the South Africa match had a direct implication on, because obviously South Africa losing meant that Pakistan could go through with a win over Bangladesh. All sorts of unpredictable stuff has happened in this World Cup. One of the things that I think we could predict is Bangladesh getting about 127. And that's what happened, isn't it? Shanto top scored 54 or 48. We have to call out the fucking umpire who gave out Shakib Al Hassan when he absolutely smashed the ball. I mean, like how on field it's potentially a dubious decision just because of how far down the pitch he is. But if you've got slow-mo and multiple different angles and Snicko, how you're giving that out is, wow, it's beyond belief. 127 for 8.
Couldn't happen to a nicer bloke though, could it?
At one point, it did look like Bangladesh were going to get a bit of a score, but as Pakistan often do with the ball, they managed to find wickets at important times. Shadab Khan, I think, took 2 in an over, didn't he? And Shaheen Afridi was a bit too good for the lower order. Let's say. In response, Pakistan. Well, I mean, you could predict some of this as well. 32 off 32 from Mohammad Rizwan, 25 off 33 from Babar Azam. In the circumstances, it's sort of okay, isn't it? And then I guess Shamasu got bored and decided to end things. They win by 5 wickets, probably made it a bit closer than it needed to be. But means they go through to the next round. Where do you want to start here, Ross? What took your eye?
Shaheen Afridi, is he fit or is he not fit? Because this tournament so far, like, his performances have fluctuated. He's been down slightly on speed. Here he comes and blows away the Bangladesh tail, which, regardless, you still got to take those wickets, right? How important is he? Actually, I'm going to rephrase that question. Is he up to the challenge of winning a semi-final and a final because he's such an important cog in this team, or has he just blown away a lesser opponent here?
Oh, that's a good question. I think he's getting fitter. I mean, like, full disclosure, after this game, I did only watch the highlights of this match because it was on at 4 a.m, and I just stayed up to 3 to watch the other match. So I didn't see it in this game, but he did look, some of the balls he was bowling, like he was getting a bit more pace and carry. I mean, Lytton Das was basically out because he didn't get over a ball that was quicker and bounced more. And then he bowled an excellent Yorker to, I can't remember, Ossadek maybe. So I think early in the tournament he clearly wasn't fit, but now probably is. Dr. Jack. Okay. We need nice. Dr. Ganguly to weigh in on this.
Fractured back, fine. Bumrah's going to play. And Dan, Shadab Khan. I'm a huge fan of Shadab Khan. I think he's a massive asset to the side. But just how important is he to this Pakistan side? Because he's carrying on his back a little bit at the moment.
Well, he's only all-rounder in the whole teom, so he's hugely important.
What about Iftikhar? Come on.
Iftikhar's there. Mohammad Nawaz is there.
Oh, well, I forgot about the Mohammad Nawaz to some degree, but I'm not having Iftikhar. I wouldn't even have anyone in the team, so that's... something that I'm pretty strong on as well. I mean, I've said this so many times. Where on earth is Azam Khan is? I don't know in this squad.
Burger King, I heard.
Well, doesn't matter because he smashes it. I'm like, he's a far better T20 player than most of the players I've been picking over the last year.
Mohammed Harris is coming in as being a good addition to this side.
Absolutely, absolutely. And delighted to see it. He's the one I've been watching for a long time. Do you know what, right? Do you know what? I think that if I'm Bangladesh, I'm angry, I'm upset. I don't know if they will be or not. They seem to be, said they didn't come to win the World Cup, and it's loads of positives because they won 2 more games than they did last time. It's a load of rubbish, really, because you had a golden opportunity in maybe, 40-60, 35-65 game to 35-65 game ago to get into the knockout stages. And he basically just sort of knock it around for 120 balls and put 127. I mean, like, in this situation, you'd be better off just getting 80 all out and having a go, wouldn't you?
And I've literally got written down here that they are going to look at the back of this tournament with regret. I've got that in my notes here.
They finished below the Netherlands.
Yeah, and they didn't need to, right? They literally had the opportunity, as Dan said, to just go for it. Like Lytton Das, like against India, was the perfect. I thought that was going to be the catalyst. I thought they were just like, hang on a minute, we are well in here. There they choked, fine, but here in this game, they could have done something a bit different. And yeah, Dan, I'm completely with you on that one.
Yeah, I think it's a big missed opportunity as well. I think another team that will be ruining some of their performances is probably Zimbabwe. We'll get to their game against India, but what do they lose to the Netherlands and Bangladesh? If they'd won both those matches, they might actually have been in the semi-final. It's mad that Pakistan have made it through. Like it's unfathomable. In the game before, what were they, 40 for 5 or 40 for 4 after 8 overs? Or they were out against Pakistan. They were basically cooked. And then Iftikhar, I could not believe this actually happened. Iftikhar is the man to restart the Pakistani engine. And even then, they're still need a bonkers result to go through. And then even after they get the bonkers result, they still have to play Bangladesh. And Bangladesh, as you both said, instead of actually trying to do anything, are sort of like the willing participants in just shepherding them through the next round. It was a pretty poor game of cricket.
Without practice match.
Yeah, lots of people have been saying that this proves that bowling, being a good bowling team, is the way forward in T20 cricket because Pakistan have made it through. I saw there's a Freddie Wild tweet that said, according to their impact metrics, Pakistan have got the best bowling impact in the tournament, but the 9th best batting impact. Now, we don't really know what either of those things mean. We don't know how they work that out. But I think we can agree that their bowling is better than their batting. Is that a trend that we should look at and be like, yes, it's better to be Pakistan first at bowling, 9th at batting than the other way round? Or have Pakistan basically been extremely, extremely lucky to get through? Dan?
I think a bit of both. So if you add 1 and 9, you get 10. Divided by 2, you get 5. And I think if we're really honest, they have probably been about the 5th best team in the comp at the moment, and they kind of got through on a very fortunate basis into the last 4. There is some trend as to being a bowling strong team is better than being a batting strong team, but there's not a great deal in it. In terms of like long term, if you're looking at leagues and stuff like that, if you've got a very, very slightly or around about 0 net boundary percentage over the course of a season, you are very slightly more likely to qualify for a bowling strong team than the batting strong team. But there really isn't a lot in it, and yeah, I just think that ultimately they're a completely polarized team, aren't they, in terms of their strengths and weaknesses. And I think that just because they've got an amazing bowling attack, which we all knew before the tournament, doesn't give them any excuse to bat like idiots.
I also think with that, to some extent, that because teams know how crap they are at batting, that factors into how they bat against them.
Should do, shouldn't it?
It's very rare Pakistan don't generally get 200, so you don't generally need to try and get 200 against Shaheen Afridi. Like maybe if they were cranking out the runs, then other teams would be a little bit more aggressive, and that would change. They're directly affected by your bowling performance is going to be directly affected by your batting.
And so if you're looking at a bowling impact stat, which we don't know how they calculate that, then there's also that potential for it to be a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy if that's the case, because if teams are targeting 165 or something against Pakistan, trying to put a score on a board to defend against their mediocre batting, then their bowlers are going to get good impact ratings because no one's going for it against them. So you've got to be quite careful, I think, sometimes with these metrics to make sure that they're kind of independent of all the other variables at the same time.
And they're telling you something that actually is important.
Yeah.
Ross, anything more from this game? We've got still more cricket to cover. It obviously means Pakistan get through.
I just think from a Bangladesh perspective of what they can do next, like after this tournament, because they've got a domestic T20 competition. They've got some okay players here and there, but it just seems to be like they made that step up, had a couple of okay results, but they're floundering. Like they're not really progressing any further. They're almost like in a state of flux as a cricketing nation, and I'm just kind of wondering what they can do next, and if either of you had an opinion on, do you know what, actually they need to be focusing on young domestic talent, identifying it young, doing the X, doing Y, or they need to be making sure that their players are out playing in these franchise competitions and really pushing that Taskin goes to the IPL, or really trying to put doing something that they can to build
an IPL team to take Taskin though.
I reckon you can find a way. I reckon you can grease the right palms. Just speculation. I don't know that.
You're right though, Ross. I mean, I've been writing about Bangladesh for years, and it's the same regurgitated conversation about lack of power hitters. And now, is that to do with the pathway, if you like, in terms of players being discouraged to take those options? You know, is it if you hit a 4, you expected to hit a single afterwards? So great cricket, lads, and on all of that, rather than keep trying to take on the bowler, and also just what they need to do is they need to just go and get a power hitting coach in. They have to hire a power hitting coach, and they need to do what did under Owen Morgan to some degree in terms of making these chewing up balls innings completely unacceptable.
Yeah, can't turn up to a T20 competition with 7 anchors, can you? Or 7 people who can't be that.
Well, I think this is part of the problem that they don't have, and this is why you need coaching. They don't. It's not. We did this before the tournament. I had Bangladesh on the preview, and I was looking at who hits runs quickly in Bangladesh, and there just isn't really anybody. Like it's the cupboard is completely bare. From the point of view of sort of who you could bring in, they're just in the doldrums when it comes to batting. They're not. You never know though. I mean, like they're not. Maybe if they find some batting, they'd be okay because they do have bowlers. Don't know. I think they're out, aren't they? I mean, I suppose the other thing no, I'm not sure about this. I'm not going to sidetrack us too. I'm not going to sidetrack us too much. But one of the things from these 2 games is that the Netherlands now automatically qualify for the next tournament. I think that if you finish 5th and 6th, if you're one of those teams, the highest ranked team goes through rather than where you finish. So Bangladesh are going to be at the next World Cup.
Yeah, them and Afghanistan. But
it does have quite big repercussions. The Netherlands on who can get through. It's good news for Scotland and Ireland because now it's not 2 into or 3 into 2. It's not Netherlands, Ireland, and Scotland. Only 2 of them make it through to the next World Cup. Netherlands have already automatically qualified, and so in the European qualifier, unless Jersey do something ridiculous, the 2 quite good teams go through. Germany. Well, I'd like to see Germany at the World Cup.
They've got quite a few South African players actually just started playing.
Yeah.
Demand
and they'll definitely win the Super Over as well. So.
You beat me to it. You beat me to it. I was sitting there going, I've got a good record in the Super Over.
Bad news, but I think bad news for the African side, though, because I think now only one of Zimbabwe or Namibia make it through.
That's shocking. That is shocking.
That's just wrong, isn't it?
You're trying to grow the game, and they're just like, only one of you in South Africa come
No, they grow. Papua New Guinea are virtually certain to make it, and we'll have Oman,
they were dreadful.
UAE,
they were dreadful,
and a few other teams. I think like Singapore or Hong Kong will probably make it from Asia as well. And they're not awful teams, but probably Namibia and Zimbabwe are better than both of them. Anyway, we're going to take not a break, a moment to remind people to like and subscribe to the Cricket Podcast. We can see over on the YouTube, as us people in tech call it, the YouTube. We have 260 odd people watching, but we have a like deficit. We have a like deficit, Ross. We only have 39 likes, so let's address that, please. Let's get some subscribers coming in as well. Why not send us a super chat and we'll read your question out if Ross set it up properly.
I did. Don't you worry. I did.
And we've got a Patreon. We'll mention that later in the podcast. Check out the show notes if you want to support us directly. The final game in this group was between India and Zimbabwe, and I believe it was a dead rubber, unless my maths is extremely poor.
Well, it's who's going to finish top of the pops, wasn't it?
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. So India, they bat first. They do okay. KL Rahul's found a little bit of form, or arguably dropped down to his level. You could be the judge of that. Rohit Sharma not having a good World Cup, 15 off 13 for him. Virat Kohli back to his best, 26 off 25. And actually, there was a point. I think India were on 108 with 5 overs to go, and there was a point where actually it was conceivable that they'd end up posting 160 odd or less if Zimbabwe bowled well, and it could be game on. Surya Kumar Yadav wasn't having any of that though. I think they added 80 in the last 5 overs, and he got 61 of them. Nuts.
The guy's a freak.
I think that
the
was
guy's
about
an actual
right.
freak.
Yeah.
You know what? When you watch like AB de Villiers, that Sky has just moved into that mantle now.
Just
like, the guy
shots.
is phenomenal. Like
the other thing is, I mean, like we could be a little bit like, oh, it was just Zimbabwe, and there is some truth to that. But Zimbabwe have been, I think, the second best team in the Super 12s at the death with the ball. They've been really, really excellent. It's why they beat Pakistan. It's why they've been close in other matches. They're quite difficult to get away. India didn't have loads of wickets in hand, and Surya Kumar Yadav has destroyed them, completely owned them. Dan, I've already read my Surya Kumar Yadav stat out, so I'm going to throw it over to you for a statistical take on Sky.
I am going to go and give you India's strike rates for this competition so far. I'll talk about their main batting group, okay? Dinesh Karthik, 64. Akshar Patel, 100. Hardik Pandya, 102. Rohit Sharma, 110. KL Rahul, 122. Virat Kohli, 139. Surya Kumar Yadav, 194.
It's ridiculous. He's nearly 50% better than the next best player.
Yeah.
That's nuts. I think he's been by far the best player in the tournament as well. Certainly with the bat. I'm really enjoying it as well. It's an enjoyable story arc. And I think as well, we said this before the tournament. We said one of the players, not an emerging player, but one of the players that a lot of people won't have seen a lot of because he made quite a late entry into international cricket. And there are quite a lot of people that don't watch the IPL out that sort of follow the show or listen to the show when we're not doing IPL stuff. And we said lots of people are going to see Surya Kumar Yadav bat for the first time, and it has been, a joy. It's really been a fantastic tournament, and we've seen his star rise, haven't we, Ross?
Yeah, and he's we talked before around kind of Shadab Khan being the only all-rounder in Pakistan side and kind of carrying the team a little bit. Sky is saving these guys. Kohli obviously saved him in the Pakistan game, but Sky has given them the ability to qualify as top of the group, right? And I think again, people like Sky sometimes get underappreciated. As much as that sounds really crazy, like people like Rishabh Pant, for example. I was listening to the BBC TMS comms for the England game. And the two commentators on there, Aggers and I think it's Stuart Clark, are on there. And they go, I can't believe Rishabh Pant is not in this side. I can't believe there's like Sky in this side. People should just be going, don't need to worry. You could play anyone else. Just play Sky and they could be like, yeah, this guy's amazing. He'll hit all the runs and that's how it'll work out. And he's just been phenomenal. And I'm really, really hoping that Raheel in the chat is correct, that Mark Wood will take down Sky in the semi-final.
Guys, I've got a trivia question for you.
Cool, go for it.
What do Shreyas Iyer, Shikhar Dhawan, Manish Pandey, Sanju Samson, Shivam Dube, Washington Sundar all have in common?
They're Indian.
Apart from that.
They've all played in the IPL. They've all got a higher strike rate than KL Rahul.
No.
Manish Pandey, come on, Ross.
They were all picked as batting options by India in the from 2020 until the debut for Sky on the 14th of March 2021. The India selectors thought that they were better than Sky in T20.
Well, Sanju Samson probably, but that's just from a Rajasthan Royals fan like I am. But
that is insane.
Manish Pandey, that is just fun. That is just that must be really twisted the knife in. Imagine like the conversation Sky's had to have with like his dad, just like, "Don't worry, son, it's going to come." If they're picking him, like, there's a chance that you're going to get in. Come on, like, just one more year.
I would be disappointed if somebody selected Manish Pandey for a team I play in over me. I don't know, let alone like Suryakumar Yadav for India. I mean, it's just such a phenomenal year. It can't really be overstated how off the chain it has been from a physical point of view, and he's carried it on in this World Cup. One of the genuinely few batters who have turned up and dominated.
And regardless of any pitch as well, right? Any condition, any pitch, he does it. That's the sign of a good player.
Chatil says he failed a fitness test in late 2020. I can't believe that's true. Like, he's not.
Is this one of these like fitness tests that the West Indies have that they just like rule out players or whatever?
Yeah.
Or is it a genuine injury? I don't know.
Yeah. I can't believe. I mean, I think with the West Indies, they actually have like different targets depending on who you are. So I don't know.
It's like Chris Gale has to walk down the street and like.
Yeah, Shy Hope's got to do a marathon in 2 hours.
Shimon Hemmeye's got to do 7 marathons in a week.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe it was something like that, because you cannot tell me that Ashwin is fitter or was fitter in 2020 than Suryakumar Yadav, and he was around the team, wasn't he? So
weren't they picking Kuldeep Yadav at that point? And he
played in that area.
Yeah, he's not winning any fitness competitions. Let's be fair.
Rohit Sharma's in the team. I'm not.
Rohit's not a fat shame. We're not fat shaming.
He's not an unfit guy. But like, if someone's got to dash 30 yards to cut off a boundary, who are you picking? Suryakumar Yadav or Rohit Sharma? Like, it's anyway nuts. Nuts. Gurjot suggested that Hetmeyer can't catch a plane, so he's not fit. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe Hetmeyer was so unfit he couldn't get to the airport.
He got given 5 minutes to run from the hospital.
That'd be such a good fitness test. Right, everyone, you've got your cricket gear on, you've been given your West Indies gear. Right, we're now racing to the plane. If you can't get there in this allotted time, you're not coming.
Do you know what perplexed me on that one? Right? So he missed his flight, and they said that they were not picking him because it meant that it messed up their like strategy for these warm-up games and stuff. And the replacement guy didn't even get there for the start of the warm-up.
Oh, that was That feels like a different century. In response, Zimbabwe basically gave up. Brian Berman and Sikander Raza slogged it about a bit.
Yeah, I said before.
Congratulations to him as well.
Who?
Yeah.
Sikander Raza.
First person in T20 history to get 500 runs and 25 wickets. Is that what it is in the calendar year?
He's definitely getting a multi-crore IPL contract.
Do you reckon?
Yeah. He's played well against India. Played well in the World Cup.
Ryan Burl's got a chance now after this. That's the other day, 100%.
I mean, hasn't Litton Das actually had like a little bit of a run of form? Though?
Yeah, but then in a world where like so many good openers don't get.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah,
that is true. I wonder if Jason Roy will get another go.
Well,
wouldn't stun me. Okay, right. I think that's probably this game done. It was relatively meaningless. We'll talk more about India v England in a bit, but we do need to talk about England v Sri Lanka, which was, I don't even really know what this game was. Weird. It was weird. Sri Lanka, they batted first. They set off like a train. They batted really, really well early on, and then England. And I don't know when this started happening. England wrestled back the initiative with the ball. It used to be that when it went wrong with the ball for England, it just carried on going wrong, and then you hope the batters got them out of jail. But now they've got like options and stuff. Adil Rashid picked up his first wicket of the tournament, bowled really well, 4 overs, 16 for 1. Sam Curran has been off the chain good in the World Cup. Just been overtaken by Nortje today in the top wicket taker stakes. Mark Wood picked up another 3 wickets. Although his first over was quite expensive. Good stuff at the death. And it restricted Sri Lanka to 141. I think there's some really weird stats or quirks out of this. I think that Sri Lanka were on 65 after the first 7 overs, and then managed over the last 13 to only add 76 more runs. Which is pretty poor. With 9 wickets in hand. Now we'll talk a little bit about the surface. I'm sure that had something to do with the slowdown, I think, for both teams. But we'll talk about England's, or I'll summarise England's innings first. Josh Buttler and Alex Hales got England off to a really good start. First wicket fell 75 for 1 after 7.2 overs. It's Buttler. Hales goes a couple of overs after. At that point, England are 82 for 2. They have basically 11 overs to get 60 runs against a Sri Lanka team that are out of the tournament. And they use those overs. They didn't want to leave any of the fans disappointed or feeling shortchanged. And they crawled to victory. In the final 10 overs, England hit 1 boundary. And they may actually have lost were it not for Ben Stokes, who's 42 or 36, although it doesn't look particularly exciting, actually probably was quite important in England getting over the line. Really kind of odd batting from England. Although, if you look at the win predictor, this is genuinely true. Sri Lanka's chances of winning didn't really get above 5% for the final 13 overs of the game as well. So it was a really close game, which actually wasn't close at all. I don't really know what to make of it, Ross.
It was, well, I tell you what, as an England fan, I know you're not a massive England fan, but I am an England fan, and it was horrible to listen to. Like, I watched the first part of the game, and I was just like, where have they picked Sanath Jayasuriya from opening the batting with Nissanka, the bloke who couldn't really hit it off the square at any other point and had one of the worst games in the World Cup only 2 games ago. And England were rattled. They kind of went away from their kind of bowling plans. You're right, kind of Mark Wood went round a bit. It was a little bit fortunate here and there. But England, in that second part, it was almost like they forgot that they were a senior batting lineup. And like Moeen Ali gets out in one of those. Oh, I love Moeen Ali. And he gets critique around that he throws his wicket away. And like this was one of those games where all of his detractors were just like always pointing to it and be like, look, why has he done that? But he was trying to hit a boundary. And England just tried to stop hitting boundaries by the looks of it. Was it 1 boundary in the last 10 overs, Jack?
Yeah, I think so. It was... Yeah, I mean, it was really dismal stuff. I mean, the other thing that I thought, and I'll throw this one to you, Dan, because I'm sure you'll have a take on it. The other thing that I thought was kind of weird is that a lot of the criticism they were getting in-game on the Twitter sphere, I was doing Guerrilla Cricket, people on Guerrilla Cricket, tweeting us in and on commentary, people I'm sure on the BBC were saying this, that England... Every time a wicket went down, someone was saying, oh, they're taking too many risks. Why do they always try and smash the ball everywhere? Why can't they just they can do it in singles? But the thing was, really, if you look at that batting lineup, they have 1 player who could probably have got that score without hitting lots of boundaries. Ben Stokes, who does play some quite risk-free cricket. Maybe Buttler as well, but so 2 players. 2 players who could do the risk-free score at 120, Rizwan type innings that you need. The middle over, do you remember the last time I think I spoke with you, Dan, we were talking about middle over cruisers with respect to Ben Stokes after he retired, and we're talking about how he, in the middle overs of ODIs, has a nuts average. It's like 70 and a strike rate of nearly 100. Like, he can just bat and not take any risks when the field's out and still score quite quickly. Perfect situation for him. But the other guys, that's not really their game. Like, they have to be hitting boundaries to maintain a strike rate. And if they stop hitting boundaries and they start thinking about steering every ball down to third man, like Sam Curran, I'm going to pick on him, and I think it's probably a bit harsh because not necessarily his fault. But he tried to run a few balls down to third man, didn't get any of them away, panicked, went for the big shot and was out. Instead of being like, I'm going to trust what I can do as a player, I'm going to trust my skills here and my ability to clear the ropes if I have to and to take on what I see as the bad ball. He was treating every ball like it was an opportunity to score 1 and not 4 or 6 until it became a problem. And then it was like, now I have to go and hit this next ball for 4 or 6, otherwise I'm in real trouble. And that's actually why they were losing wickets. It wasn't because they were taking too many risks. They were taking virtually no risks, and then all of the risk that they should have been spreading over 12 balls was going into 1 ball, and a suicide shot came out. So that was my take on it. I don't know what you thought, Dan.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. Ultimately, at the end of the day, England have picked a squad with hitters in it, and I've got no issue with that at all, because that's generally my modus operandi as well. Just like you can't ask an anchor to go out and smash 170 strike rate, you can't ask the hitters to then just go and play like a run a ball, not like a Babar Azam would play.
Yeah,
I don't think. You're not asking to do it. Now, I also think that this is where it's very, very easy to get drawn into this results-oriented discussion about what's right and what's wrong. So I've got this guy, and he's a persistent tweeter to me, and on the verge of getting blocked, I'll probably say. and this is, and it's such a, I've said this so many times before, it's such a weird thing to be so attached to, is this absolute love of nerdling cricket in T20. I just don't understand it. And if you're going to be obsessed about one thing, why would you be obsessed about that? And then now, obviously, he's multiple tweeting me today about Ben Stokes' innings and how it's proof that that's the best strategy and all this stuff. Actually, it's a perfect storm of situations where, okay, England needed 67 of 76 balls when Ben Stokes came in. I would like to think any professional cricketers could get the job done in that situation. I mean, it's not like he's having to play his Headingley knock or anything like that, is it? I mean, it doesn't prove anything. And let's say he was 30 off 30 as opposed to 42 off 36. Then England would be relying on, and he got out. Then England would be relying on Milan, who couldn't run, and Adil Rashid, who can't hit. So actually, you could see how it could have gone wrong the other way as well. And also, when you're looking at Brooke and Livingston, Ali, Curran, they're all hitters, and they get out. Well, that happened in that particular match. So there is a percentage chance of that happening before it starts, and there's a percentage chance of it not happening before it starts. And they all did the same thing, and they all got out, which is a very, very small chance of happening. So in that situation, you'd expect one of them to go out and hit 25 or 15 or something like that and get the job done with 4 or 5 overs to go. It didn't happen, but let's not be results-oriented about it. It's actually all about the processes.
Yeah, which is why I thought it was sort of weird. I mean, I know they were under pressure, but it was strange how they all went for the kind of nerdle approach. I understand. I totally get why Ben Stokes did what he did, and I think that was a really good innings, and has a reasonable impact on winning. England winning the match. Not as much of an impact as like some people would say, but Hale's 47 off 30 was more runs and he does it quicker, so that's probably the innings that really breaks the back of the chase. But yes, from the point he comes in, I can't remember the numbers you said, Dan, but 42 off 36 from there is perfectly acceptable. It's good risk-free cricket, and it means England almost certain to win because of how he plays. It was the rest of them that I thought was a bit odd. They do get through. There are Sri Lanka have got some decent spinners. You shouldn't take that away from them. And it was a pitch where if you were a decent spinner, you were going to have a little bit of joy. So I think they're factors in the slowdown as well. And actually, like I said, England weren't ever really in a position where they might have lost that match. I don't. They needed, for Sri Lanka to win, they'd needed something freakish to happen, and then probably something freakish to happen after that as well. Like it was a 2 crazy moments type scenario, like a Curtis Campher bolt from the blue type.
Yeah, we're just seeing
Danica to do a Curtis Campher.
yeah, something like that. What are you gonna say, Ross?
I think we're just seeing like what Joss Butler is going to try and be as a captain and what he's trying to instill on these guys. He's going to the MS Dhoni school of take it as deep as possible. That's the approach that he's going with. So it's quite interesting to see. There's a couple of players, Jack, when we start thinking around the semi-final where England will be playing India.
Yep.
Darwin Milan pulled up, looks to probably be out of that game because he's pulled his groin. Didn't look too pretty on the field. So, and there's a couple of players not quite performing. So Harry Brook hasn't hit any runs really in this tournament whatsoever. He did very well against Pakistan in the build-up to this World Cup. So there's a question mark there. What do we think is going to be the lineup? Are they going to go Phil Salt into the top order and maybe move Hales down to 3?
It's a good question. We may as well at this point move on to semi-final previews. There's not that much to dig over on that game. I don't think.
Easy win.
Well, more or less, yeah. It was a close, easy win. That makes sense. It was like winning 2-0, but the other team had all of the ball. Yeah. So we'll do. So you want to do India v England first, right? England injuries. Milan, they haven't officially ruled him out, but the fact that he didn't come out to bat and that he went off straight away and that it's clearly a muscle injury suggests that probably he won't play. Who comes in? Well, I think they keep Harry Brook in the side, and I know he's a little bit out of form, but to go back to Dan's point from a minute ago, the reason you have a stable of hitters is because you know that you are going to fail if you have, or individual hitters are going to fail regularly. So, he's had 4 innings where he didn't get runs. That happens. He might have 3. He might have 2 in a row now where he gets 60 and wins the tournament. I don't know in terms of who comes in though. I imagine it will be Phil Salt and they'll bat him at 3 or something like that. But they might want to be a bit more creative. Dan, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are that is exactly what they're going to do. I don't necessarily think it's the best idea, but I think it's going to be what they'll do by default. I actually would go very, very left field, and in the expectation that India will play Chahal against England, because England currently in this World Cup are striking at 101.63 against leg spin and slow left arm combined. Only Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and Afghanistan are worse with strike rates against that with those bowling types. So if I'm India, I'm bringing in Chahal. Now, who's going to counter that for England? Who you could bring into the squad and replace Milan with Ben Duckett.
Ben.
Supreme player of spin, slot perfectly into that gap. That's what I would do.
I thought you were going to say Chris Jordan, bring in the extra bowler. I've seen that doing the rounds.
Yeah, that old David Willey.
I don't think that's what I would do. Ross, what's your call on this conundrum?
Well, I think we've seen that the issue in this World Cup has been how well your bowlers perform, and I think England's bowling is a huge part of this. And I think their batting, they've got enough batting. Is my bit. I like Dan's suggestion of playing Ben Duckett. Is he actually a part of the official World Cup squad?
Bring him in if you rule Milan out, right?
Fine, okay. Which is a bit gutting for Milan if you do make the final because he is one of your better players. So there is a risk of doing that. I think I would probably go with the extra bowler, but I'm also not a cricket expert. I would just purely on the fact that I think England need that flexibility, and I think that with India's batting lineup, some of their players have the propensity to take down any of them, right?
See, my problem with this theory is that the extra bowler is going to be Chris Jordan, and you don't need him. If Sam Curran's going to bowl like he has been bowling, and there's not really any reason to suggest that it has been a fluke, and I've got some notes on Sam Curran actually, changes he's made, then I think it's pretty clear that you don't need the extra bowler because you've already got Stokes as an extra seamer if you need that, and you've already got Livingston, you've already got Moeen Ali if you need extra spin. So I don't like.
Yeah,
you've got Wokes for the power play. Like
England needs 7 bowlers against Sri Lanka. Do you need an 8th?
Ross does. Ross heard the point about Pakistan's bowling being the best, and he's just thinking, well, why don't we get more bowlers in?
More bowlers. More bowlers.
We open with Chris Jordan with the bat.
We've joked about England potentially playing a team of batters, just batters all the way down. Maybe they've got it the wrong way round. It should just be all bowlers and one wicketkeeper. India, like a lot of people have been billing up this battle, the Surya Kumar Yadav v Sam Curran death over fight. Dan, if we see it, who are you backing?
Surya Kumar Yadav. I'll back him against the bowler in the world right now. Okay. I would quite like to see the Mark Wood versus Surya Kumar Yadav battle as well.
Is there a particular reason for that, or you just want to see a fast guy bowl at a good guy?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, ultra high pace. And because I've seen when Mark Wood is firing, he's an exceptional pace bowler. And I want to see the best v best.
I liked how Hasaranga played him.
From the square leg boundary.
Well, he was doing like the thing, sometimes batters are like, I'm going to move to the offside, then I'm going to move to the leg side. You don't know where I'm going to be. He was basically doing that and then just running to square leg when the ball was bowled. It was like pretending like it was a plan, but it wasn't. It was total evasion. Sam Curran, in case they do get knocked out, I did want to talk about him because his transformation as a death bowler is really interesting, and it isn't like a few people have been like coming up with ideas for why this may be. I think, from what I've seen this week, that it's because he's added 2 entire lengths to the deliveries he bowls in T20 cricket. Like, he literally did not bowl a Yorker until about last year. And now it's 15-20% of the balls he bowls. And similarly with bouncers, he didn't really drop it short very often. Now it's about 20% of the balls he bowls. So not only has he got the left arm variation, and sometimes he can get the ball to swing, and he's got skills in terms of slower balls and trying to get something out of the pitch, but he can bowl virtually any length, so you have no idea where the ball's coming from. I've been really, really impressed with his transformation, and I think he is literally going to be able to name his price at the
100%.
the IPL auction coming up. What have you thought about him, Dan? Is it? Do you think this is a change that will stick, or is it a potential flash in the pan?
I hope it's a change that will stick, because at least we found a kind of logical reason as to why that's the case, rather than just batters throwing a wicket away or whatever it might be, flattering his numbers. We found a genuine reason. I completely agree with you about the IPL auction. I mean, you at the moment, I'm thinking Chris Morris prices of a couple of years back. Just hope Sam Curran doesn't retire after that next year. But it's interesting you make these points about there's variations of lengths and stuff. So that's something that I do a lot of work on in pre-match packs and preparation for teams and stuff like that. Is that I do see that there's a lot of bowlers who will, for the vast majority of their intentional lengths, at least, would say, will bowl between 6 and 10 meters, which would be sort of 6 to 8 meters would be roughly a good length. 8 to 10 will be back of a length. They don't want to go shorter, and they don't want to go any fuller risk. Try and bowl Yorker and risk missing either side. Now, Sam Curran, I think, should definitely be applauded for that, because it's given him a complete new dimension, and also bowling short when you're a short person who's not expressed pace is an extremely difficult skill to pull off as well. So fair play to him, and certainly now he's keeping the batters guessing, whereas perhaps a couple of years back he was a bit more one-dimensional. And I do mark out these bowlers who will only bowl that type of lengths, because then it's much easier for batters to know that if they haven't got a Yorker or they don't try and take your head off with something, then they can kind of plan and prepare for the bowlers a lot more.
Yeah, so that's Sam Curran. Right, India, they have some selection decisions to make. I think you both think they're going to go for Chahal. I'm not sure they'll take that risk. I think they think Ashwin is a viable number 8, and part of the reason they're playing him is because they want his batting down the order. So we've got that debate. I suppose the other debate is whether I don't know who that is.
Dennis the Menace.
Yeah, Dennis Kartik. Dinesh Kartik. DK comes back into the side. Ross, which one of those 2 questions would you like to answer? And then Dan, you can answer the other one, and then we'll all just talk over each other at the end for our opinions.
So it'd be interesting, because Dennis Kartik has got a 64. Yeah, it was what Dan said earlier. Rishabh Pant has got a big following, but he's not done anything for Indian T20s for a while either. And it's just wondering about who they think is going to have the most impact on the game and how they'll utilise it, right? So from a right-hand, left-hand combination, kind of the different dimensions of the ground, I think having a finisher like DK in that lineup is probably a good thing against this England side. I think sometimes, regardless of how good you say Sam Curran is, I still think that other people who bowl at the death is also an issue. And having someone like Dinesh Kartik, it would. I can't not say it now. It's really difficult.
All I can think of is Dennis Kartik.
Yeah, I know. Dennis. I literally can't get out of my head.
Player.
Yeah.
That's right, doesn't it?
So I'd be going DK over Richard Pants.
God. Dan, Chahal or Ashwin? That's your question.
I'm going to go Chahal because of England's weakness against leg spin, and I can understand why you'd want the extra stability of an Ashwin at number 8, but once you've got like 3 anchors in the top 3, what more do you want? I mean, like literally, it's just OTT, and I think that England will play Ashwin a lot more straightforwardly than they will against Chahal, and I want to exploit the opposition weaknesses at the end of the day.
Fair enough. On right, you can answer each other's question now. DK or Pant for you, Dan? Ross, Ashwin or Chahal?
Chahal.
Yeah, okay. I reckon they're going to go with DK and Ashwin. I think they've set that up and they won't go away from that. And, I think they like the idea of a finisher, even though I think
they've got Jermaine Defoe on the bench.
Yeah, I mean it is a little bit like that. I don't think just because he's done some finishing, you can be like, oh, we'll bring him in now and he'll always finish it. But I think they're kind of. They have got Hardy. But...
Well, Mr. 102 strike rate in the tournament.
He's been IPL, doesn't he? As soon as I'm captain of IPL team.
He's got too much seniority. The more seniority you get in this India lineup,
I'm actually being serious. Like it's like the more responsibility you get, there's definitely a relationship between the amount of responsibility you get playing for India or playing for an IPL team and someone's strike rate. A reverse correlation, 100%. I reckon that's the case.
Well, it's kind of like life, really.
Well,
isn't
if that's true,
the more you've got, Jack.
If that's true, then they can't even be letting Surya Kumar Yadav order his own breakfast. Like it's.
They've got Shardul Thakur just spoon feeding him at breakfast. So from an England perspective, we think we're going to pick Phil Salt probably on thing, and then for India, we think the general consensus they'll stick with Ashwin and they'll bring back DK. Jack, is that what we're saying?
Well, that's what I think, but I don't think that's what we would necessarily do. Right, we need to make a prediction here and why we think the team who we think is going to win. Ross, you can go first.
I'm going to have to back my boys. It's going to have to be England. I think it's such a difficult one. These are the 2 best teams in the tournament, and yeah, it's going to be really, really close. But I just think England with the batting lineup is going to be better.
Dan?
Sorry to disappoint England supporters, but I'm leaning to India. About 55-45, 57-43 kind of numbers, those type of things, and that's where I think it's going to go at the moment.
I am on the same page as you, Dan. I think that India are just a little bit better, just a little bit more well-rounded. For our Sam Curran, they've got Arshdeep Singh. Bhuvi's found a bit of form. Got a lot of good bowling options. They could potentially have even more good bowling options if they pick Chahal. So I think India will shade it. I agree with you, Ross. I think they're probably the 2 best teams in the tournament. I probably want England to win, but it's a toughie, isn't it? Because you also want the possibility of an India v Pakistan final, or India to lose to New Zealand again in the final, which would both be quite funny.
I mean, for the podcast, from a purely podcast perspective, India versus Pakistan final, we would have a record-breaking video. So
yeah. So for the pod, India. Let's talk quickly about the other semi-final. We've got some questions. It's going to be quite a long show, but we're out of action for a couple of days afterwards. It is between Pakistan and New Zealand. I nearly forgot that, which is pretty dismal, isn't it? New Zealand have been quite exciting in this tournament until they ran into England, who managed to slow them down. Pakistan haven't really been very exciting and have been gifted the semi-final. So I fully expect that Pakistan will turn up and smash New Zealand. That's my prediction. What are you looking out for from the game, Ross?
Well, Kane Williamson actually being a proper T20 batter. Like we've seen him do both now in this tournament. We've seen him absolutely stink the joint out with a 40 from 40 innings that was a game costing. And then we've also seen him hit 63 off of 30 balls or whatever it was against Ireland. So he clearly does have it in his locker, which Glenn Phillips said. And we did laugh at the fact that Glenn Phillips did say that he's got it in his locker to score at pretty much a strike rate of 200. But I think that is a huge part. I also think that the New Zealand batting lineup is probably as deep as as Pakistan's. Actually, I think they're quite actually well balanced on that side. Glenn Phillips obviously is a bit more oomph in the middle, but whether that form can continue, don't know. And then bowling wise, Santner is actually having a really good tournament so far. So the spin is okay, and their pace bowlers will cause some problems to the Pakistan batting lineup. So yeah, for New Zealand, and I think it's whether Kane Williamson actually plays proper cricket or not.
Dan, have we got a good chance for an India v Pakistan final, do you reckon?
It's solid. I have both teams as a sort of that 55-45 favourites. So, yeah. What does that work out at? I'm trying to think off the top of my head, about 30% chance of that happening.
Yeah. So you think Pakistan? I can infer from that you think Pakistan are slight favourites over New Zealand. Where do you think the battle will be won?
Or in the mines.
In the mines.
So
Underground.
You've gone for intangibles. Dan has said intangibles are going to make the difference.
Much.
If you look at New Zealand, I think they've got a history of doing it, and I think they've probably done it to some degree in this World Cup as well, of playing above the sum of their parts. And with Pakistan, they can play above the sum of their parts, but they can play below the sum of their parts as well. Quite significantly, like in terms of like the volatility of performance levels, Pakistan is huge. New Zealand is fairly small. But then I don't see New Zealand having a batting who's kind of can take the game away from Pakistan, which is I think again Pakistan will favour Pakistan in terms of maybe like 160 type chase or whatever, 160 match. Finn Allen is that one, but obviously he's been getting a lot of starts and then not converting starts, getting quite a few 30s and 40s in quick time. I can't see Kane Williamson replicating his effort against Ireland. I think we have to put the caveat in of that it was against Ireland. Looking at Pakistan's bowling compared to Ireland's bowling, I mean, it's like chalk and cheese in terms of the sort of ability differential.
Josh Little, Shaheen Afridi. I reckon that's about the same.
Josh Little's actually quite good.
Little's quite good.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure it's Shaheen Afridi's level.
Gareth Delaney, Shadab Khan, like different types of bowlers, but you know.
George Dockrell, Mohammed Nawaz.
Wow. Sorry, Dan.
Run out of other ones, yeah.
Mark Adair against Harris Ralph. We'll play top trumps. It's like a right. So I don't see anyone can take the game away from Pakistan. I think it's going to be a really good game. Actually, I hope it is, and it wouldn't surprise me if there was another last baller from Pakistan in this match. And who knows? Maybe a super over.
Right.
Have one, yeah.
So predictions are: I think New Zealand are going to do it. Ross,
Pakistan,
and Dan,
Pakistan.
Okay. We did pretty well as a collective in predicting the semi-finalists. We got 3 out of 4 right.
Well done us for picking India, England, and Pakistan. Tell ourselves right on the back. Well done, lads.
We've got some questions here. We're going to start with Discord. You can join our Discord where we talk about cricket all the time. If you become a Patreon, you can find out about that in the show notes. It's pretty cheap, for about £4 a month. We do some bonus shows. And there's some extra content on there. You can even be on one of those bonus shows at some of the higher tiers. It's good stuff. The questions we got through. VJ says, I scrolled up and down. Where is it? Right, second question. DK or Pam? Oh, we answered that. So we've answered the question. Well, that was rubbish, wasn't it? Thanks for the question, VJ. Lan says, obviously want England to go through, though it is a great consolation prize if India play Pakistan in the final. Question for Dan. Ready, Dan? What's the team with the highest boundary count win percentage for this? What's the team with the highest boundary count win percentage for this tournament? It's normally 80%. Is it the same so far for this tournament? So I think the question is boundary percentage as important in this World Cup as other World Cups or other tournaments, or is that that effect perhaps been mitigated slightly by some of the larger playing areas? I don't know if you know that off the top of your head. That'd be quite a tough one.
I don't know off the top of my head. However, who is it who asked the question? Sorry,
Lan.
Lan, you'll be delighted to know that I'm covering this on my Substack tomorrow, doing a World Cup roundup. So that's my plan for tomorrow. So yeah, keep an eye out for that.
Where can people find your Substack?
danweston.substack.com.
Perfect. So I think that's everything from the, what's it called, Ross? Discord.
Patreon.
Yeah, Patreon. We do have some Twit questions too, and I will open them up quickly. Up to 9, but it might be a few fewer. What about having Harshit suggests a format change here. What about a common points table for both groups, like the IPL? Australia didn't qualify, even though they have more points than Pakistan. So I actually don't like that in the IPL. I think they should have 2 conferences. So I think the IPL should learn from the World Cup. I don't know if either of you would go for a combined points table. I suppose they're sort of doing that at the next World Cup, aren't they, with the format change? Ish. Dan?
I don't know. I mean, you look at the Football World Cup and you think, okay, well, one team might qualify with 3 points out of the group, and the other team might not qualify with 4. You don't say, well, I think the team with 4 should have qualified because they got a point more than the team who qualified got 3. Because a lot of time it's all about your opposition that you're playing against as well. And in cricket, the rain often takes away your opportunities to earn maximum points out of matches as well. So, no, I mean, I don't think the current situation is perfect, but I don't think that I would adopt that as a change.
Cool. Cricket USA. I think that's the official Cricket USA here tweeting us, asking this question. Yeah. It's not. What should India do to try and win against England? Please comment on their bowling and batting strategies. And I have them down as a 75. Have it down as a 75-25 favouring England. Do we agree with that? So I think we were much closer to 50-50. 2 of us on the side of India, 1 on the side of England. 75-25 is pretty extreme. Unless you know something about India. Maybe they're going to have another round of cold sandwiches, all kick off and refuse to play.
Maybe they're going to make Sky captain.
One thing that India should do to try and win against England, Ross.
I think Bhuvi is a big important part of this, and I think if they can get the ball hooping round, I think he's been England's kryptonite more than one occasion, and I think that really targeting them early on. If they get Butler, I think they win the game.
Gurjot says we've had a few format questions today. Isn't it a disadvantage to teams playing the qualifiers, then the Super 12 games? A team playing 8 matches in a span of less than a month would definitely have a disadvantage against a team playing 5 games. How would you guys present a format taking care of this issue? Dan, you were nodding there. Do you agree?
To some extent. I mean, you can look at it and say, actually, well, it makes the match fresh before they play against one of the major teams as well at the start of the tournament. So there's a counter argument to that as well. I do think, though, that some of the smaller teams who came through the pre-qualifying have been dealt a bit of a rough hand in terms of their scheduling and travelling and having to go from like one end of Australia to the other and stuff like that. So that's perhaps where I would look at it in terms of fairness. Now, the solution is that you scrap the pre-tournament phase, and you have, what was it, 16 teams or whatever it is, and you have 2 groups of 8 or whatever, and you have 7 matches for each team, and then it's just job done. And I don't see that there's any problem with that at all. I mean, if you've qualified for the World Cup, you've qualified for the World Cup. We don't have like a pre-qualifying in football where, like, I don't know, Ecuador play Turkey or something for the right to play England. You just have them all in the same group. So yeah, just once you're qualified, just qualify.
Yeah, I agree. I think the next World Cup is going to be 20 teams. I think it's 4 groups of 5 and then a Super 8. So at least if you make it in, you're playing the group stage before getting to the Super 8. I don't really have a problem with that format. I think that will probably produce some good cricket and give everyone a good go. The actual how you get into the next World Cup is baffed, as we discussed halfway through this show. They need to have a look at that. It's wrong. Balls 23-25. Ross, you'll like this one. Should India bring in Siraj instead of Ashwin or Axar for the semi-finals?
No. Next question.
And this is the last one, not the Zen guy. Is Sam Curran going to be the most expensive player of the coming auction? You can answer that as well, Ross, if you like.
Yeah, that's why not? I think there'll be some pretty weird mini auction behaviours by some of the teams, and I could definitely see someone blowing their budget on Sam Curran, and probably a decent investment.
Yeah. Cool. I think that brings us to a close. Thank you very much for tweeting us in. Thank you very much for watching us live. Cameron, Gurjot, VJ, Akmal. There's a lot of people chatting about stuff in the chat there. It's been a pleasure having you along. Final reminder to like and subscribe to the Cricket Podcast, and if you want to head over to Twitter, we're at the Cricket Pod. Dan, anything from you before we press the button to end this?
No, I think I'm all good and just looking forward to 2 fantastic matches on Wednesday and Thursday, and then final the weekend.
Cracking. Ross, anything from you?
No, have a nice week, everybody, and see you on. We'll see you on Friday.
Bye.
Recording